Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Danny Flores with OC County Power Players. Today we have Brace Lake joining us from Orange County as well. And he is in the construction services and sales, and he's been in it for 40 years. He now has been doing luxury windows and doors for the last 10 years. So Brace, thank you so much for coming on with us. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there.
It's a pleasure to be with you. So when I was young, my oldest brother started a garage door business. And I worked for him. I spent time, installing and eventually managing. And during that time, I went to college full time. And when I graduated, he looked at me and said, "Hey, why don't you stick around and why don't we see what we can do with this?" And we turned the business into something pretty big and nice. It was a lot of fun. He wanted to retire, so he sold the business, and I helped with the sale. Mm-hmm. And he retired off into the sunset in Arizona, and it's a very hot sunset in Arizona, but he likes it. And I continued to work. I've done a couple different things, but what I'm doing right now is I work for a manufacturer, and we sell luxury windows and doors. And out of the percentage of homes that use these, the product I deal with is less than 1% of the homes. The product, instead of being made of wood or aluminum or some sort of vinyl or fiberglass, is actually made of steel. And what makes it special is if you have a pair of French doors, let's say it's 7 feet wide and 8 feet tall, you're going to have the vertical rails or the stiles and the rails or the structure of the door. In wood, you're looking at anywhere between 6 and 8 inches of width on each side, and that's the wood structure. And you can paint it, or you can use a nice stain grade wood, and that's very attractive. But with steel, the frame is about an inch and a quarter, an inch and a half. And so because steel is so concentratedly strong, you don't need to have this huge structure. And my goodness, I've been involved with a pair of French doors that are 12, 14, 16 feet tall.
Wow.
And the door frame is about an inch and a half wide, and you'll have light divisions in it, or it might not. It might just be what we call a one light door, but they are stunning. The company I'm working for is called Portela Steel Doors and Windows. Mm-hmm. They're out of Texas, and there are rules in the construction industry on when it comes to windows and doors. They have to have a certain ability to be energy efficient and have to be proven. They call that NFRC rated, so the National Fenestration Ratings Council. And so that the product is fully rated, but it's also pretty expensive. I'll have customers who are building a luxury home, and they'll come in and say, "Hey, this is what I want. I saw this in a magazine." And compared to wood or steel, it might be double to triple the price for steel as opposed to a high grade aluminum or wood. But there's nothing like it. And you can drive through older parts of any town, and you'll see steel windows on these buildings that are 80, 90, 100 years old.
Right.
They have an ability to last. There's some upkeep and maintenance that they'll need. And then what we're building today is engineered better, has better things like silicone and better glass options that really make for quite a presentation. So yesterday I spent some time at a property in Malibu. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to not disclose who it's a celebrity person. And I said to the contractor, I said, hey, if this is like an actor, unless it's Clint Eastwood or Robert Duvall, I really don't care who they are. But it was a good-natured conversation, and again, a house that really isn't all that big. You're talking over $1 million worth of windows and doors, but when it's all said and done, the house is going to be spectacular, and it's really gratifying because when you're replacing windows and doors in a home, you're like a long-term fixture there. You're involved for 6 months to a year before your product's delivered, and then another year or two after that before the home is finished. And so you get to know these builders and architects and designers, and you get to know the homeowners really well. And one of the things I like to do is keep a really good relationship, keeping them apprised of all the details, addressing any concerns they might have. And what that enables me to do is, in return for being responsive and a very helpful resource, I get to use that construction site as a showroom.
Oh, wow. Very good.
And so when somebody's looking to do some work like this for their own house, whether it's a new build or whether it's refitting an existing home, mm-hmm. they're able to walk onto this job site and really see it and put their hands on it. And then there are some customers that I had this customer in Brentwood years ago, and she enjoyed me showing up. She was a very pretty lady, so it's not like I would flirt with her, but I guess I would flirt with her a little bit. But I knew her husband well, and he was just a really good guy. And she would let me show up at any time and bring in clients. And half the time I'd bring clients, they would be some movie star, music star, some captain of industry. It was really, and she just loved that attention. And so it's fun. It's a fun job. And you're doing something that will, like, there was a house that I worked on in kind of between West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. The home was 120 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And it was a big, beautiful mansion. And, years and years ago, it was this mansion surrounded by several acres that was all part of them. And then the servants' house, which was down in this part of it, actually became a separate house, and the rest of the area was developed. But still, the house is sitting on a couple of acres of land. Mm-hmm. And it's just this big, beautiful home. And this particular one was featured in the movie The Godfather Part 2.
Okay.
But you go into these rooms where these steel windows are, and these steel windows are 120 years old. And you grab the lever that's made of bronze, and you turn it and you push the window out, and it works like a brand new window. It's really amazing. Mm-hmm. And so they added on to this house, and they needed the product that I put on there to match or go along with what was there. And, you have to kind of worry about, will the city allow you to put this on without having insulated glass, meaning the dual pane glass?
Right.
And I find that even in places like Los Angeles, when it comes to historic things, even though it might not technically be an historical building, the inspectors allow that, and off we go. And it's really quite fun. It's a very enjoyable position.
Yeah, it seems like it's very, very relationship driven, especially because you have such a small part of the market in the building industry. And it also almost sounds like your windows and doors are for new construction as well as retrofit. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, retrofit meaning the house is going through a pretty major remodel.
Right. And they want to put your product in. And then dealing with, the different movie stars and actors and everybody else to deal with. I'm sure that's enjoyable as well, right?
I remember this job I did. I was meeting with my dealer, and the homeowner was coming in with her designer, and they told me in advance that she is the wife of, she's actually an actress, but she's also the wife of a very prominent tennis player.
Mhm.
And the designer lady has kind of got a little crazy and is way over budget. And I don't care how rich you are, you still have budgets on things. And if you set out to build a house for $10 million and you're suddenly spending 13 million, you're upset.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they told me that they are likely not going to be able to go with my product because they're so far over budget. And of course, there are alternatives to steel. Now, usually when you look at a steel door and window, it's painted black or a dark bronze color. You can paint them any color you want, but typically when you see them, they're very dark.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's common in the industry for what I call middle of the road windows and doors, meaning it's clad wood or it's clad with aluminum. It's this engineered product. They'll paint it black and have some thinner, they'll make it as thin as they possibly can. And they'll say, oh yeah, it looks just like steel. Well, do you, have you noticed Bentley cars look really cool?
Yeah, they do. They're cool.
Yeah. Well, what if you were to say something like, hey, I want a Bentley? Well, don't get a Bentley. Just get a Chrysler 300M and put some 22-inch wheels on it. It looks just like a Bentley. Yeah. No, it doesn't. It looks nice. But and that's kind of the same thing with these steel counterfeit looking things.
Right.
From a distance, it's still attractive. It still gets you a nice look. Well, anyways, what happened was this lady came in with this designer, and the designer lady was British, and she was just nasty. She was just in a terrible mood, and she was kind of stereotypically British in that she had a Cockney accent, and she's probably never seen an orthodontist in her life. And but the wife of the tennis player was so pretty that it would kind of make you pause. And I told this dealer afterwards, I said, they should put that lady's picture in every tennis school. Say, hey, learn how to play tennis and be a pro, and you'll get a wife like this. That wasn't very nice of me to say. And I'm sure that, and they're a lovely couple, and to this day, they're still married. Right. But they did not buy my product. But I get to meet all sorts of interesting and enjoyable people. And even people who aren't celebrated in pop culture, I still find them to be lovely, wonderful people.
Right. So it looks like you have a niche type of a business. How many competitors do you have, and how do you set yourself apart from that?
Well, I will say this. We live in a free market society, and the free market will always have competition. And competition will cause you to either get better or cause you to go out of business. Mm-hmm. And they'll always work to keep the prices competitive. Mm-hmm. And so I have a good share of competitors that I deal with. The company I'm with, Portela Steel Doors and Windows, have been around for over 40 years. And so we're definitely not a newcomer. But
Correct.
But even 10 years ago, the number of competitors I dealt with were, you're talking about 3 or 4, and one of them was out of New York and one of them was out of England. Mm-hmm. Well, right now I deal with I got a dozen competitors to deal with. And because my background is kind of a combination. Well, I studied economics in college, but I think like an engineer. And in my career, I've been a very hands-on salesman or manager. Mm-hmm. And so there are ways to show the nitty-gritty details of the product. And if I'm doing my job well as a salesman, I'm showing it in a way that doesn't make their eyes glaze over. And, you know, the making a steel window and door, there's 80 to 90% of the job is making the thing be able to work. But the last 10 to 20% of what you do to get the details right, that's where it makes the difference. And what's really enjoyable about the company I'm with is the product is breathtaking. I take clients and I take dealers and I take homeowners and designers to these job sites, and they literally drop their jaws. It's really quite fun.
Wow. That's great. That's great. That, I guess, to be successful in selling it, you have to believe in the product. And so it sounds like you do believe in it and the quality and the look that it provides.
Yeah. And where I'm with, I'm working with a really close friend that I've known for years, and he's up in Northern California, and I'm here in Southern California. And our feedback really matters. And so in the different things I've done in my career, I've worked for some pretty big companies. And what you like about that is the stability and how everything is thought through. What you don't like about it is you are a cog in the wheel, man. And there's really, when you say, hey, we can improve this product by doing this and that, they'll kind of look at you and say, yeah, that's nice. Well, where I'm at right now, my opinion is meaningful. And when I tell the CEO or I tell the guy in charge of fabrication, hey, I'm concerned about this, they take out a notepad and they ask me, hey, what is it? And
Right.
When I was younger, I served a mission for my church for 2 years in Central America. Mm-hmm. And so I speak Spanish fluently. And so quite often the people who do the fabrication, Spanish is sometimes quite often their first language. Mm-hmm. And so I can go and speak very directly with these guys, and it's a lot of fun.
Makes it so much easier that you can speak.
Yeah. I'm convinced that it's not nice to say. I'm convinced that one of the primary languages that God uses is Spanish. It's just a wonderful thing. Some of my best life experiences have taken place while I've spoken and listened to Spanish.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. Now, if somebody, it seems like you've honed your sales skills by understanding your product, by understanding your customer, by any of their concerns or your concerns in the product to continually create quality product. If somebody is thinking of getting into sales, what kind of tips would you be able to give them? Jump in with both feet. Get headlong involved with what the product is. You need to be able to speak fluently when it comes to what the product can and cannot do. Don't ever lie. If there's some place where you're coming up short, come up with a script to acknowledge that, but not dwell on that. Be honest and straightforward, but also be very clear on what it is you're offering. I would say that the nature of sales is like a three-legged stool. Mm-hmm. One leg represents the price or the money. Right.
Another leg represents the product or what it specifically is. And the third leg is the personnel or the personalities involved. And I have worked for companies where the product had some issues. But it was a price competitive product, and my relationship building still allowed me to deal with these shortcomings and still manage to successfully sell the product. Now, there are times where if that third leg is just way too short, the stool is not gonna work.
Once they are, but
yeah. But you can have like there was a place I was with. I don't want to really get into who they were and what they did, but it was an electronic product, and it had some shortcomings. And I was very keen to get them corrected, and I would talk with the factory regularly. And sometimes I felt like I was just beating my head against the wall. But I would have my clients tell me, the dealers who would buy the product, they would say, I'm not really fond of the product that you sell, Brace, but you are by far my most helpful sales representative, and I really appreciate what you do. And, so you don't have to be with the absolute best team in order to have a successful sales career. Now, I feel like I'm enjoying the best of all three worlds because the colleague I work with in Northern California, we really blend well. The company I'm working for really takes seriously what they do. The product itself is immaculate, and it is very competitively priced as far as the steel industry goes.
Right.
And so on that part of it, I suppose, maybe I'm entitled to have something like this at this stage of my life.
Yeah, you have all three legs of the stool.
I got all three empowered, strong legs of the stool.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if the weakest leg is me. But it's really, I don't know. In the presentation I dealt with yesterday was with the builder and with the architectural team. And we're at this place in Malibu, literally right on the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm describing it, they just looked at me and said, "Man, you really like this stuff, don't you?" Mm-hmm. And that means I'm doing something well. Another thing that they'll often say is, if I'm doing my job right, they'll say, "Man, you must be part owner in this enterprise because you really take full ownership and responsibility." And yes, where I'm at, there's not a lot of us, but we all have an ownership stake. But and that's nice. That means I'm doing my job correctly.
Yeah. That means you're taking care of the customer right. Then if you do that, then the doors open wide for you, and that's awesome. So sounds like you're doing really well. Sounds like you're happy with what you're doing, and you've been successful. And congratulations on that. Sometimes people in the sales industry or in other industries also look for additional sources of income so they can earn passively, either to help set them up for retirement or to supplement their family's income. What do you think about that?
Well, it's important that the people working for our company are making a living.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more to this world than money.
Mm-hmm.
You could be working for a place making lots of money, but you feel like you're selling your soul every time you engage a customer, and you feel like you're having to hide certain things. And what matters is you need to like it. You need to like the people you're with. You don't need to be the very best. You definitely don't need to be the cheapest. And in fact, when somebody in sales says, "Well, ours is the best thing to buy because it's the cheapest," selling based on price is the weakest form of salesmanship.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not necessarily going to know that fresh out of college or fresh out of trade school or whatever it is that gets you into a selling position.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer that college is not for everybody.
Right.
I loved my time in college. I loved the exposure to literature. I loved the field of economics. I just thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. And in the construction industry, I'm often meeting people who didn't go to college, and on some level they might feel, I don't know, bad or inadequate or something. I say, no. You're doing good, honest trades work, or you're sales. You're doing things that really matter. When you look at how many people in the United States are employed by a small business, it's the majority.
Right. Exactly.
And somewhere in that small business is an ownership team, group, or family,
mm-hmm.
and they have a the entrepreneur is literally the ultimate American.
Right.
And I've worked for entrepreneurs who are literally first generation Americans, and they are fabulous, wonderful, incredible people. It's
Yeah, it's true.
we live in a dream society.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Well, Grace, as we wrap up, what does 2025 look like for you?
Well, I don't want to get political, even though, like I told you beforehand, politics and history is one of my favorite subjects.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we've got that 2025 is going to be a page turn for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be oriented to making industry just take off and shine.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? There are other focuses that, people focus on the environment and people focus on the makeup of who people are and what workplaces. And I'm sure all those things have a level of importance. But I think this new administration is going to be laser focused on making things work, making the supply chain work, keeping costs down, keeping it favorable to Americans. I could probably go on for another half hour if we wanted to talk about what's going on in Asia and
Right.
supply chains from there. I probably actually enjoy that conversation. But I think 2025 will be a good year, not only for the country, but it's going to be a really good year for the company I'm with, and for me and my colleagues, and for the people at our company. We're just really excited.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. So am I. New year, new goals, new accomplishments, and everything else. Well, Grace, thank you so much for joining us on this interview. If somebody that's listening and would want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
My email address is Brace, and my name is Brace, Brace. And I bet you've never met anybody named Brace before.
The new name. Yeah, absolutely. But you didn't finish off your email.
So my email is brace@portella.com, PORTELLA.com.
All right. Thank you so much once again for joining us today.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.